Mike, I hope you're having a great afternoon, sir. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ryan.
Mike, I want to pick your brain about the NFL Combine, but I also want to pick your brain about something that's going to be happening in New Orleans, and one of these Alabama coaches is going back home to be saluted, Burton Burns.
Yeah, every year the New Orleans Touchdown Club, we have our selection of the Pete Rozelle Award and our high school football coach of the year award, along with college coach, and also, someone who's contributed tremendously to the brand of football. And Archie Manning gets the Pete Rozelle Award this year, and I got put on the committee. And my thing is, when I looked on the list and his name, he hadn't been on there yet, my thing is he's got to get it. But on the college coach of the year, it goes to Burton Burns. You think about his career as a high school coach in this area, and he goes on to in the college ranks, to coach at Clemson, Tulane, and at Alabama. It's just been a remarkable run for Burton and what he's done from this area, and his impact at Alabama, and also his impact when he was with Bowden, certainly at both Tulane and Clemson, and just a great recruiter, a guy who's got a tremendous relationship with his players. And, I laughed. A few years back, I heard John Grud made the comment, man, I'd love to be the running backs coach at LSU. That's a pretty easy job because of the talent. Well, I think it was sort of tongue-in-cheek, because you also got to understand at that position, when you're recruiting some of the guys that, Burton has recruited at Alabama, you're just not dealing with talent. You're also dealing with some egos here, and guys that have never been a backup to anyone. And now you've gotten sometimes to either share the load or you're not playing early on. And how he's been able to manage that, and goes to show his relationship. His presenter Saturday night is going to be Mark Ingram.
Wow.
Mark thought that much of Burton as a coach and how well he kind of shaped his career that, he became the presenter for Burton Burns. So goes to a super guy. Guy's been, I don't know that there's a high school coach in this area that, Burton Burns has not run into numerous times. I mean, he's that type of personality that he's always around. Alabama certainly has been a big presence with Coach Saban here, recruiting in the state of Louisiana and what he's been able to do. So, rewarding situation for Burton and what he's done throughout his years. And as I guess he always puts it, he's in the winter years of coaching at that level. So great honor for Burton, and it was an easy choice. Easy pick for me to come up with Burton Burns, and the committee went along with it.
That area that you're talking about in Louisiana, that is a hotbed, not just for recruits and all that, but, I mean, you look at the people that you guys will salute. I mean, that is a hotbed of talent all across the board, player, coaches, the great state of Louisiana.
Yeah, and, it wasn't like that growing up. I kind of think about it now, guys that have become coaches from this area. They had a lot of players, but, it didn't equate to coaching. Coach Robinson certainly had Grambling, and R.C. Slocum had a pretty doggone good run at Texas A&M. But, throughout the years, it hadn't been a lot of coaches from this area. Now that sort of changed, and Burton was one of the first, along with Coach Ed Ogeron. I think about, there's other guys from here that have went on and taken this to another particular level. C.J. Curtis Johnson, who was a longtime wide receivers coach with the Miami Hurricanes, comes down to coach with Sean Payton, becomes the head coach at Tulane, goes to Chicago, and then he comes back to the Saints. And so there's been a lot of guys, I'm just talking about within maybe 20 square miles from where I live, that have become major college coaches. And That's something now that I'm seeing more and more of that maybe wasn't there, say, when I was in my teens and early 20s, because you saw a lot of coaches, but they were not from the state of Louisiana. But that's changed dramatically today.
Can you think of anything else that's worthless, more worthless than an offensive lineman or defensive lineman running a 40-yard dash?
Not much. But I will say this though. What I want to see from him is, and you can cut it up today, is that first 10 yards, because that ability to get to the second level to throw that key block is important. Now, 40 yards running for a lineman, if you're running 40 yards, I hope you got your hands up in the air
Sure.
that it's a touchdown, because that's the only way some lineman's running 40 yards downfield, that, you're running, as your running back is crossing the goal line. So there's always something to that, Ryan, and I don't think it's relevant of how fast you run 40 yards. But I do think in that 10, 15-yard area, and being able to get to that second level, I think is pretty important. The other thing, too, that the combine's just a little nugget. I think it's important for this couple reasons. One, I think the medicals is very difficult today to get that type information, exactly the type injuries or something maybe that is wrong with someone, because the school can't release it. The HEPA laws in the United States are pretty strong if you cross that line. And so you want all that information, and you'll never go through a more comprehensive physical than the combine. Secondly, I want to know that guy. I can read it on a piece of paper. What that scout has, kind of typed to me about his personality, how he relates to his coaches, what his coaches say about him, the trainers, guys that have played against him. But I want to find out how much football matters to him. I want him to tell me how much football matters, and I want to hear it from you. I don't want to read it from a piece of paper. And so that's important, the one-on-one interviews. A lot of times people say, well, how you worked out really made a lot of difference. And then you find out from the coaches or the scouts, a lot of it had to do with the interview process, that they really liked how he came across, how mature you are, how much football matters. And listen, there are always little standpoints that I try to catch when I look at a player. But there's one thing I want to get from you if I'm talking to you one-on-one. And I've been, God blessed, with, success in other businesses other than the one that you and I are doing today. If it's been in the TV movie world, if it's been in the engineering profession, I've had jackpot lucky stuff. But the one thing I found, that one trait in all of that, if you're in the business world, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, if you're a coach, if you're a player, you got to be paranoid. And some people are paranoid 24/7. But what I'm talking about paranoid is that I think that trait in every player or coach comes out. You're never satisfied with what you've done. How many times, right, have we heard coaches, they get a 10-win season, man, they beating their chest about it. And you get the most successful people in the world, you know what they complain about? Unless they've won it all, and sometimes even when they win it all, they complain about the one that got away. Maybe we could have done better in this particular, we should have done better here. I could have coached better. I should have figured something out a little bit differently. They're never satisfied. It's a paranoia. And that's what drives great businessmen. It drives people that are on the air. It drives people who are doctors, lawyers, any profession. They have a sense of paranoia that it's never good enough. I want you to tell me about your high moments and your low moments as a player. And you can get that. You can get that when you sit down with that player and you speak to him. And so I think that's important. The other thing, too, is these games today, and it's a little bit different in college football than it is in the professional ranks, but it's in the high 60s the number of games that are decided by 4 points or less. And how many times have we seen teams take a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter and end up losing? I want to know a little bit about, and this is where the combine gives you a little sense. Man, a lot of pressure when you're there. You know it's a job interview and a big one. And so you're going through the interviews. You're going through all the testing. You're going through the vertical jump, long jump, 40-yard dash. And so, man, that's sort of wearing on you a little bit. And it sort of wears you down. It sort of tells you a little bit how you're going to do in the fourth quarter of a game. I want you to be every bit as strong in the fourth quarter as you are in the first. It gives me a little hint of how well prepared you are physically, because so many of these games come down to that fourth quarter. And, you know, you're tired and you're beat and you're in a dogfight, and how athletic you can still be in the fourth quarter. And these combine workouts, when they put you through that ringer, it gives you a little nugget of it, of how well you could perform athletically late in the game. And I think today, if I'm a pro, I take a close, really long look at that. Don't show me film of a guy in the first quarter, in the second quarter. I can see that. You know what I want to see? I want to see what he does in the fourth quarter. A lot of people, they stray away from wanting to be the man in the fourth quarter. But they got a lot of people that want to be that guy. And so I think everything's a little relevant. The 40-yard dash thing, to me, for alignment, you could almost whip that out. But I am interested in how well he runs in that first 10 or 12 yards, because that tells me how well I think he'll be effective throwing that key block on the second level, which we see a lot of times is the springboard to getting a guy make a big play downfield.
Mike Detiller right now, WWL 870 out of New Orleans. Mike, so when you're calculating, and I'm looking at a guide that you sent me last year that's about 4 inches thick. It may be 3 inches thick, but it's all these different details. You might as well wrote it in Chinese, because I don't understand most of it, because all the numbers. I mean, I'm serious, Mike. I'm not trying to be. But what is the one characteristic as far as measurable that you calculate the most? And I'm sure it's based on the different position, but is there one area that you look at the NFL Combine? Alabama's got 14 guys up there. Is there one that you value the most as far as measurable?
Can he move his feet?
Okay.
I don't give a damn what position you play. If you can't move your feet, you can't play. I've seen a lot of guys who are really fast can't play. They have no body balance. None. And they're easily knocked off of a route. Can they run? Absolutely. But can't play. It's almost like having a lineman who's got really long arms. If you don't know how to use it, Ryan, what good is it? All he is a long-armed lineman. I want to see how well he can move his feet and he plays on balance. That, to me, is the biggest point for every position that you have. Quarterback, running back, receiver, lineman, linebacker, defensive back. Can you move your feet and can you play on balance? Because you know what? You've got guys that can run this 4.3 40-yard dash and it's on track. And as soon as you put them in a game, they can't run with a helmet and shoulder pads. You got linemen that, man, they look like they've carved out of stone. And by the end of the first quarter, they look as though that they are absolutely gassed. So a lot of this is sort of kind of, you take it with a little grain of salt, but it does sometimes apply. And that, to me, is the biggest part about having a guy that can move his feet and has got some body balance skills. The part off the field I want a competitor. Man, I want a guy that he's got an edge on him. And again, that's part of the paranoia, part of a player. I want to see how competitive he is. He's never satisfied. When you had a big-time program like an Alabama or an Oklahoma or Southern Cal, LSU, whatever, man, you competing against 5-star recruits most of the time, 4- and 5-star guys. The NFL is not like that. You got guys that are 1-star recruits going up against a 5-star guy. And that coach could care less what you did in high school and college. He could care less because he wants to win at his level. And so there's so many different stories that go along with it. But and it's all subjective, and it's an educated guess, no more than that. Anybody tells you they got it down to a science, they yanking you, but good. It is an educated guess on that player, on how well he will fall into that team, that system, that scheme. Because I think, just like in recruiting, there are 2 to 3% of players that no matter where they end up, they're going to play the same. The other guys are all kind of fit scheme people. How well it works out. You look at Alvin Kamara. Okay, he goes to Alabama, and he's got, man, as long as your arm, list of guys ahead of him. And it didn't work out. He goes to Tennessee with a knucklehead head coach that didn't know how to use him. He comes to the Saints, perfect fit. Perfect. And look what he was able to accomplish in year one. So as talented as Alvin was, he didn't maybe fit exactly what was happening at that time in Alabama. And he got a host of talent in front of him. He goes to Tennessee where, they want to try to make another guy, the number one guy, ahead of Alvin. And it's obvious that Kamara was the guy. And, again, what the coach was thinking of at that time, I got no clue. But then it falls right for him. Absolutely right. Right scheme, right fit, right coach. Everything works out. Last year, we saw Jared Goff with the Rams. The year before, he looked like he couldn't play in this league. I mean, he looked absolutely lost in 2016. Look how well he played last year with Sean McVay coaching him. It does go to show. System, coach, fit. Sometimes that's such a big part of your success. And I think about that, people, even in our business. You go to the right station with the right general manager, with the right ownership, and everything works. And you can go to a real huge station, and if the support's not there, then you're not as good, basically. You're not looked at as maybe not as good. So there's a lot of things that go involved with that scouting combine. But I think the thing you have to always understand is, for the most part, they know how good of that player is because they've seen him on film. They've seen him on tape. They have the write-up on him if you're a coach or a general manager. What you want to find out is the medicals, but also you want to get to know that guy as much as you possibly can and how well he'll fit in that locker room, how well he'll fit with you scheme-wise, and also how much motivation he's got, how much football means to him. And no matter what somebody wants to tell you, it's just like winning the lottery. You can say, well, oh, man, if I won that lottery, it wouldn't change my life. Man, that's horse hockey. It changes your life instantly. Does it change you as a person? That's the big question mark. And we've seen that with people even in our profession, that they get a little bit of success and they change personality-wise totally from the person we knew even a couple years back. So that everything is subjective. It's an educated guess on how well that individual will do at the next level. But there's certain parameters that you want to see in a receiver. You want to see how fast he runs. You want to see his vertical jump, how well he can pick up running certain routes, how well he catches the ball. And does he catch the ball out front with his hands and not up against his body? So, there's always that little connect the dots that the combine gives you a little bit of a nugget that you can put in your pocket for when you come down to that final evaluation.
Mike Detiller, WWL 870 out of New Orleans. Mike, final question. We're all hee-hawing around up here. We've got a Gardner Minshew, East Carolina transfer quarterback. looking at Nick Saban and the quarterback roster, it seems to me, just by judging, by going out and getting a grad transfer quarterback, because you know he's not going to be the starting quarterback. He's coming here for a backup role. Something tells me they're nervous in that athletic department. They're going to lose one of these quarterbacks, whoever doesn't win this job in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and that's why you do that. You try to get a little bit of an insurance policy for, the eventual situation that'll happen there, and that, somebody's going to leave, and based off of what happened in the final game, you sort of know who's your guy at this point. And it's going to be hard to convince someone else that I'll give you a legitimate shot. I don't care what type of coach you are. You are dealing with another human being and his thoughts and him seeing what has transpired and what everybody's talking about. You're dealing with somebody's emotions, too. He understands that his playing time, no matter what, if I was the starter before, it's going to be cut immensely. Man, I'm going somewhere else. I'm out of here. Listen, I appreciate, you giving me this opportunity, but you know what? I'm better off somewhere else. And I think that's what every coach tries to do. You're looking at what's not just what's on the roster today, but what's going to be on your roster in August. And what happens if something happens physically to Tua? What happens if he goes down? Then where you're at.
Sure.
Because by August, that decision's already going to be made. He's going to be out by August. And you always want to try to build up some depth at the most critical position on the field. And just look at it last year of what happened at Florida State with a guy who I think is really gifted as a quarterback. He's a big kid. He's got a strong arm. He's a little hesitant with sometimes his decisions, but he'll get better with that as time goes along. He goes down, Florida State season tanked, and the team tanked. But it goes to show how important that position is when you don't have that quality guy out there. That if he's not doing it, man, it can affect everything on that football team. And we saw it last year. That happened at Florida State. So Nick, I understand why he went after that grad transfer guy. Hey, listen, I know what's on my roster today, but I also kind of have a feeling I know what's not going to be on my roster in August.